It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Welcome to County-Wide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio today. It's been a busy week since Tuesday, May 20th at 4 p.m. I got word that there was a fire in Oak Creek Canyon, the slide fire. Pete Gordon was here with us last month. He's with the Prescott National Forest. He's their fire staff officer, and he had agreed already to come back on the 27th of this month of May to just kind of give us an update on the forest, because as I mentioned last month, we were doing a lot of stories about fire conditions, defensible space, and all that good stuff to try to prevent some of the things that we've seen so far this year, and we've seen quite a few fires already, huh, Pete? Yeah, it's I will say probably fewer than we would ordinarily in seasons past, but nonetheless, the slide fire, a good example, and we've had a handful of others. The same day there was the Badger fire, which was an RV on I-17. I think followed by Wednesday there was a fire on the Apache Sitgreaves near Woods Canyon Lake. So there's been a couple down by San Carlos.
Yes. Yep.
We had the one outside Flagstaff near Mormon Lake, Marshall Lake. We've had the Walker fire.
Walker and the Boundary, yes. We've had two in the Prescott area.
Which were side by side with each other. So yeah, it's been a busy season already. And our season got started early as well, which is not good.
Yeah, with the drier conditions, things are just more readily available. They were, as we talked a month ago, we were a month ahead of schedule on all of these indices we measure. It just made it more available. So the things that may have been left behind that were undetected have the room to move and grow and turn into fires.
Right. Why don't we start with what is a fire staff officer? You said a lot of people don't know what that is, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know what it is either.
All right. Well, the fire staff officer is a historical term within the Forest Service structure organization. The fire staff officer, as the name implies, is one of several staff positions with program oversight and leadership for a specific program. In this case, I have responsibility over the fire, fuels management, and aviation on the Prescott National Forest, and I work directly for the forest supervisor, Teresa Chase, who I know will be one of your guests. And every forest has someone like that. I know you've talked with Don Muse, who's my counterpart. Right. He's the fire staff for the Coconino National Forest. In layman's terms, or in the fire world where we're partnering side by side fighting fires, probably the best or closest, not necessarily a direct match, but the closest title would be a fire chief. I have responsibility for the whole fire program, both here in the Verde Valley and on the Prescott area, that specific to the Prescott National Forest.
Oh, okay. So you're in charge of all the resources, the people, and everything.
Yep, from administration to suppression to our fall and winter prescribed fire program to managing the aviation assets.
Oh, that's a big job.
Yeah, it can be, but I have a wonderful staff below me that helps out.
Right. So we're ready, right? I mean, we talked about a month ago and we were ready. Are we even more ready now with kind of some of the circumstances that have taken place in the last 30 days since you were here?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say things have really fallen in place. Even some of the behind-the-scenes response to the slide fire is an example. When we talked about a month ago, we were gearing up looking at severity, which is an annual thing we tend to go through. We look at our conditions that we talked about last month, and how those conditions might translate into our ability to keep up with new fires. Since we have last talked, most of the forests in this entire region, all of the forests in Arizona, have moved into some level of restrictions to try to limit the human-caused fires. We've secured severity funding, additional funding to bring in extra resources. Specific to the Prescott National Forest, what we've done in the last month, we've brought in 2 extra patrols and an extra fire engine on our own severity account. On top of that, our regional Coordination Center in Albuquerque has been moving resources around and bringing resources in from other areas of the country, including we've had a couple of hotshot crews in Prescott specifically, as well as around the region. There's been hotshot crews in Flagstaff, hotshot crews in southern Arizona.
There's a bunch of them here right now.
There are a bunch of them. Yeah. Not only the hotshot crews that we have in this region that belong to all of our forests and interagency partners, but we've brought in somewhere around a half dozen others, maybe a few more at this point. Some of those were already here and in place to help with the side fire. The minute the side fire took on some of these resources, we brought in even more from outside the area. So
it was almost like good luck that oddly to say, but the California fires died down a bit. So those folks could come over here. Is that where a lot of them wind up coming in from?
No, actually not. California itself has quite a pool of resources available. It's a fairly large organization, not just the Forest Service, but the CAL FIRE, the state organization, is a rather large organization. And then all of the fire departments in Southern California, well, almost all over California, are very adept and very resource rich in wildland. So it takes a lot of activity in California to see a big drawdown nationally. So we're fairly fortunate. Another unique thing about the Southwest is our fire season tends to be the first up, if you will. We tend to see April, May, June, followed by late June, July into the Great Basin, July, August, September in the Northern Rockies. So there isn't usually a lot of competition for resources this time of year. So all of that was in place to be moved this way when the slide fire happened. The slide fire obviously exacerbates that a little bit. We're able to bring in even more. So we are sitting in a pretty good position, and we were in the last few weeks in a relatively good spot. And we anticipate a little bit more. We're going to increase our resources for the coming month of June on the Prescott specifically. A few more patrols.
Hot month.
Yeah. We plan to bring in a couple more patrol units. And a couple more fire engines.
What does a patrol unit do? You mentioned you've got several patrol units. What does a patrol unit do out there?
These are folks specifically trained in a few things. Number one, fire prevention. Most of these folks are, that's their day job, is fire prevention, whether it's school programs, education programs, public information. They're also firefighters. They're qualified to be firefighters. And on top of that, they're also qualified at our sort of a mid-level law enforcement. They have the ability to enforce any of these infractions like an illegal campfire, smoking in the woods. And these folks usually operate alone. Sometimes they'll operate in pairs, but oftentimes they're equipped with water on their truck, a little bit of water, and they literally patrol the forest. They drive around the forest in different areas and make contacts with the public. And their first goal usually is compliance. If they see someone who's doing something that's not legal under these restrictions, they'll try to educate and enforce. And if necessary, then it might elevate to a warning or a violation. But those are the patrols. And we find a lot of bang for our buck, getting folks just being in the woods and making contact.
Well, you just said you did this over the weekend.
I did. Yeah. Not often do I get to do that, but with a heavy weekend and in the conditions we were in, had an opportunity both Saturday afternoon and yesterday to get out and drive around and do a little bit of that myself, and had the opportunity on Saturday to make a few contacts, and maybe even did a little good. I had a chance to tell someone that they couldn't be smoking when I caught them smoking in the campground, and answered another question. A young group of folks wanted to light up the barbecue with the charcoal briquettes, and had to explain to them that that's not legal either. So.
Right. Are you guys on pins and needles?
Yeah.
Does it feel different? Let me ask you this instead. Does it feel different this year than it does in other years? Because I know we have years where the forest is actually closed by now, which is an unusual thing to have happen. But I feel like there is, maybe it's just me, but I feel like there's just this intensity going on this year.
I would say so. Explaining or pinpointing where the intensity is coming from, I don't know. We certainly have talked about conditions, and conditions, despite these little spits of weather that have been coming in every week or two.
We got another one this week.
And we've got one coming.
Right.
It's not quite been enough, as you know, to really change our conditions other than maybe a few hours or 24 hours at best.
Right.
We're just not getting enough precip. We're not getting any precip, just the heavy cloud cover. So the conditions certainly contribute to just, I'd say both the public, our elected officials, all the emergency management organizations, including the Forest Service Fire Program. We're all a little concerned about, year after year it seems to be just drier and drier with the drought. Other concerns, maybe just a heightened public awareness. I think without a doubt, it'd be remiss to say that Arizona itself anyway, if not the nation, certainly hasn't forgotten Yarnell Hill last year.
Right.
And I think as we look at our communities and the danger that some of our communities are in the wildland-urban interface, there's a lot of things we're probably carrying forward to just kind of put us a little uneasy this year.
Yeah. Okay, let's take our first break. Forest Fire Staff Officer from Prescott National Forest, Pete Gordon, in studio today. I'm Paul David. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice. And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
We couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
I'm one unlucky guy. The chance of being involved in a robbery is 1 in 757. The chances of being struck by lightning. 1 in 750,000.
Please fasten your seatbelts for unexpected turbulence.
The chances of being a victim in an airline crash? 1 in 29 million. Hey, could I get some peanuts? The chances of being involved in a car crash are far greater than lightning strikes and plane crashes. And if you are texting while driving, your risk of crash increases 23 times. Now, I may be an unlucky guy, but I don't have to be part of that statistic, and neither do you. Drive responsibly.
There's no place like home.
Getting home safely is just a click away. But making sure your child is in the right seat is just one of the steps down the road to safer travels.
I don't know how it works.
Find the right seat for your little one's age and size.
We thought you told us.
There's no better way to get home safely. Know for sure that your child is in the right seat. Get all the facts at safercar.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Countywide. Pete Gordon with the Prescott National Forest. He's their fire staff officer. He's in studio today. I know what makes me think of pins and needles this year is that the fact that Flagstaff Fire Department had 7 or 8 arson fires in that one area, Schweitzer Canyon. The Walker Fire and the, what was the other one? Boundary Fire. They were right next to each other. And for me, they just spelled like somebody was going out there and lighting fires. And then this one in Oak Creek Canyon, the Slide Fire, where Slide Rock State Park is, I was told that it's just kind of right back around the corner from where you can't see. And it's not really a camping area, it's not really a hiking area, it's just kind of an area people go back and hang out in and sit around in. So I feel like somebody's out there starting these fires. And it also seems to me that every time I say it's a red flag warning day, boom, we get the smoke showing up. So I just feel like that's what I'm dealing with this year.
Yeah.
Makes me nervous.
Sure. You know, arson fires in the wildland is nothing new. We know of stories across this country where folks, for whatever reason, either learn the system, learn the weather, and maybe up to these things. I wish I had some definitive answers for you on some of our wildfires. I certainly don't know the status of the Slide Fire. I think it's still under investigation.
Right,
I certainly saw that there was a solicitation if anybody in the public saw anything strange. And
we don't get a lot of information on that.
Yeah, and
you guys hold those cards to your chest real tight about the forest fires.
Yeah, and I'll say even internally, those cards are held tight, and I think on purpose and justifiably, if they're on a lead or they've got some sort of interest in an investigation, they have to.
You don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, you know, it's important to pursue those if they've got some lead. Now, and again, I don't necessarily know that there's any lead on the Slide Fire. I know there's no lead necessarily on the Walker or the Boundary Fire, but one thing is for certain, they've all been human caused.
Yep.
You know, the only thing I can say that I think is worthwhile, while I can't really answer it because I don't have any facts on where these investigations may be going, it certainly behooves us all to just be vigilant out there. Number one, I think I talked last month about common sense, whether we're doing something in the woods as citizens, just use common sense to be careful if there's something that could cause a spark or an ignition source. And then be vigilant. If you see something strange, if you see someone smoking in the woods and you know we're in stage 2, try to find a way to politely speak up. Don't put yourself in any danger, but be vigilant or call the professionals if you have a concern of something going on.
Yeah, you got your cell phone out in the forest. Everybody does. Just call 911 and say, hey, there's something weird going on out there. Because I just feel like somebody's out there doing that. Like I said, every time I say red flag warning, all of a sudden there's these fires, so that's really bad. Yeah. Now, without talking about arson fires anymore, which if I'm an arsonist, you can educate me all you want, but I'm going to go out because that's going to be my thrill. So enough about that. Sure. We have, and we've had some already. Grand Canyon National Park had 4 or 5 on the North Rim touch off. When monsoon season starts to roll in, it seems like we get that Virga rain where you can see it falling, but it never reaches the ground.
Sure.
And then we get the dry lightning strikes. So that's something we're going to have to be paying attention for too.
Absolutely, and it's a worry every year, and I guess I would. It's that transition time.
Right.
You know, we talk transition's a big deal in the wildland fire world. Whether we're transitioning management or from day to night, or we're transitioning a different type of fuel. Another big transition for us is that period where the monsoons are setting up. We might see dew points increasing. We know the moisture's in the air, but the fuels have not reacted. There's been no precip. There's winds associated with the thunderstorms, and so everything's still dry. We can get the lightning before the rain. It's a concern every year, and it will be this year, without a doubt. We'll see how June stacks up with weather. If it stays typical to what we see in June with the high pressure and the high temps, it could be interesting come the end of June and early July.
We went to stage 2 restrictions.
Yes.
And I think a lot of us know what those are. They went Friday, May 23rd, 8 a.m. is when those went into place in the Prescott National Forest. And across Yavapai County, Coconino County adopted them. Coconino National Forest didn't, but Coconino County itself did. What do those mean, real quick?
We've elevated the stage 1, I hope intuitively, by the name of it, but specifically where we did allow campfires in developed recreation campgrounds or developed sites, no longer. Stage 2 is absolutely no campfires, period, anywhere on the National Forest. We also exclude smoking, period, unless in a building or in your car. No cleared space, no nothing, no smoking of cigarettes. Other things that elevate in Stage 2, there's no recreational shooting on National Forest at Stage 2 for fear of whether people use tracer rounds or just ricochet causing a spark. Something worth mentioning that really has nothing to do with Stage 1 or Stage 2, if folks aren't aware, there is absolutely no use of explosives on National Forest. Things like exploding targets, fireworks, any of that stuff has always been illegal.
That seems like a no-brainer there. But
yeah, as we talked about last month with common sense and intuitiveness, sometimes folks just they're not necessarily putting 2 and 2 together. If you're out there having fun, sometimes we don't necessarily think about where we're having fun. So.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the slide fire if we can. I know you've not been on the slide fire, but you've worked these types of fires before.
Absolutely.
We've got a couple minutes before we have to take another break. But kind of, and I think we can all picture Oak Creek Canyon as we drive through the steep canyons on both sides of it. This has been, this is one of the more dangerous fires, I would imagine.
Sure. No, several things. Number one, and it's been all over the media, and certainly folks that are familiar with the country, it shouldn't take much explaining. It is tough country. It is very steep country. It's rugged, broken rock. It's just hard to work in that country. Also, the topography and the terrain really can wreak havoc on fire behavior generally. If you can picture Oak Creek, a line north to south, generally speaking, a few twists here and there. The funneling of winds. When we get winds out of the south-southwest, which is very typical for the summer in the southwest United States, that gets amplified. If you can picture water flowing into a narrower stream, as it gets narrower, the speed of the water, the rate of the flow speeds up.
That's a good way to put it.
The wind will do the same thing, plus all of the ins and outs of smaller canyons causing eddy effects. So a lot of difficult country just to manage a fire. And then the other big concern is all the infrastructure, homes, and people that recreate in the canyon. And then, as you well know, above the canyon. Here we are early season, all the potential for a fire to go long duration because monsoons are a long way away. We've got all that country east of Oak Creek Canyon and northeast. As you know, they had the pre-evacuations, I understand, were just lifted yesterday.
Right, at noon, yeah.
A very real threat and a very big concern that I think the county and the fire team handled appropriately right away with those pre-evac notices.
I'm amazed. Let's take our break, but I'm amazed that we've not lost a structure, and the injuries have been more or less minor is what I've heard so far. So let's take another break. Pete Gordon with the Prescott National Forest. He's their fire staff officer in studio today. I'm Paul David, Countywide, back in just a couple minutes.
Listen now, wake up now. Can you feel the sun?
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a couple minutes left in the program, and I got a question in my mind that it's been on a lot of people's minds, especially with the slide fire and the devastation it's caused in Oak Creek Canyon. The good thing about Oak Creek Canyon is I've heard it's been kind of a mosaic burn, and so when you look at some of the pictures, you can still see, even right down to ferns and stuff still in the ground, so I'm hoping it snaps back fast. And today we're going to start kind of talking about the bear team that's going to come in and start the rehab work up there in preparation of the monsoon coming. A lot of folks are wondering, let's just close down the forest. Where are we at with that in terms of what do we have to reach in order for that to happen?
There's, I guess the first and quickest answer is there really is no magic number per se or a specific indice that we're going to use to make that immediate determination. And we don't have any data. I've been getting the same questions, and if folks suspect or believe that we have a secret date in mind, that just isn't the case. The answer to the question of when we would close the forest is it's all the same factors that we take into account when we talk about restriction, stage 1, stage 2. The next stage would then be closures. We look at the same things, and like I explained last month, first thing we do is we look at some of the science. We look at the statistics in our science or empirical data, those conditions, those indices I talked about. So we're going to look as things continue to dry out and as we approach some of these record-setting weather indices and fuels conditions, that's where we start. But then we also look at socioeconomic impacts. We also look, and frankly, maybe even before that, we'll look at statistics on number of occurrences. How busy are we? Do we have a lot of fires on the forest? Is there a competition for resources we just talked about, whether it's California or within this region? Are we seeing a shortage of resources to help us should we get fires? All of those things we take into consideration, and there is no algorithm, there's no formula necessarily to put those all together. But as all of those things become more critical, then we decide that the risk is too much, the ability to enforce or respond to fires is too much, and we may look at closures. So for now, the Prescott National Forest, we haven't really even begun those discussions. To be fair, we certainly have said that it could be an option this year, maybe a little more than other years in the last decade, but we've got no preconceived notion at this point, no determination. We want to see what the weather holds. We want to see what the fire conditions hold and the occurrences and the resources.
All right, we're out of time. Pete Gordon, great seeing you again.
My pleasure.
Probably have you come back in another time.
You got
real
it.
soon, you know, with the season and all. That's today's show. I'm Paul David. That's today's Countywide. We will talk to you again next time.